acquired it. I knew it was built in 1895, and the my understanding is that they came over here though quite a bit previous to owning the cabin, and tented, and we have some pictures with the tents and a lot of fish and gathered berries and all that, and must have just really loved it over here.
What's your name?
Bonnie.
Bonnie Porter.
Bonnie Porter.
And how are you related to
I'm married to Tom Porter, the grandson of Tom Porter from Alma. And Guy Porter was my husband's father. So, and in the Porter, do you want to hear about that? The
Yes.
Porter family, there were 5 children. And Guy was the oldest, my father-in-law. And there was Bruce and and Helen, Lucille and Lemoyne.
I knew Lemoyne. I met him one time.
Yes, and Lemoyne. And after, when Guy's father, Tom L. Porter, passed away, or at some point anyhow, the cabin was passed to Helen and Lemoyne, brother and sister, and then they, for a long time, they came up for probably from the 4th of July to Labor Day every year.
Do you know where they lived at that time?
And well, they were at that time. Helen was back in Alma. She had lived in several places around the world. She was a teacher and worked in social services. My understanding was, and she had worked in Greece, I believe, and in different places in the United States. But she came back to live in Alma when she was older, retirement age, I guess. And Lucille also lived in Alma but she had lived in Oregon for I don't know how many years, but at not a very old age, she became really pretty unhealthy, and so she came back to Alma to live, and she had a city lot that she planted vegetables and everything in, and only ate natural foods and so forth for the rest of her life, and was a big advocate of natural foods. And because the thing my husband would say, back when she lived in Oregon, and I'm not sure what her job was. But anyway, she used to send him this big box of candy for Christmas that she made, until she decided that in order to, and she lived a long time. She lived into her 80s. So, and I don't know what her illness was, but she did improve her health, and she believed strongly it was nutrition.
Did she ever marry?
She never married. Helen was married briefly. That's therefore her Vance Bronson was her name, but she was. And Bruce went. Let's see. He went into the military for a while when he was a young man, and then when he got out, he went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and settled. And he, before he was through, he had acquired a really large ranch, a wonderful ranch down the river, ran through it, and beautiful there, and a lot of properties in town. He became a wealthy man, invested his money well and everything and he stayed in Jackson Hole until his death. He was a well-known philanthropist around Jackson Hole, and so. See that, and Lemoyne was he was a chemical engineer, and he worked for I think it was Alcoa, and he lived in California, and
Palo Alto.
Yes, at Palo Alto for a long time, and I think he lived back east previous to that. But he was, from my knowledge, he was always in Palo Alto.
I remember I was walking the road one day, and he was sitting out on a stool on the back of the cottage, and I stopped and talked to him. And the name Lemoyne has always stuck with me ever since.
I think his first name was John, but always went by Lemoyne, yes. So, and Guy, my father-in-law, my husband's father, went to Colorado to where the place where, that we still own, the farm that we still own, and homesteaded, and
What town
he
is that
lived
near?
his whole life there, Linden, Colorado. And so, and that's 100 years ago. We celebrated 100 years last year from the time he homesteaded. That as nearly as we could tell, because he was out there earlier than that, but the time that he filed was 12. So that's all of them, I guess. So they all did quite well, and very interesting family.
How did you folks end up with the cottage? Helen and
Well,
Lemoyne.
after Lemoyne passed away in 82, I think it was, or it's close to that anyhow, my husband inherited half, and then later on Aunt Helen left the other half to my husband. So.
Did you come up here a lot during the summer?
We did previously. Well, not a lot. We never went anywhere a lot. The summers on the farm, but we'd come up here. Probably starting maybe in the 60s, I suppose, when our children were fairly small, fairly young. Started coming up here maybe at least once a summer. And they would stop by on their way through, and we'd know they were up here, coming from Alma. They'd stop at the farm a lot of the time, and it was always an interesting experience, for my kids to come up here. They always remember freezing, being so cold. And we don't know why, because it's not cold now. Its cabin had a lot of leaks in it. We plugged up a lot of leaks, so the wind couldn't whistle through quite as easy as it used to. But they didn't do anything really. They didn't do what do I want to say, handyman projects. That was just not something they did.
What was the name of this cottage?
Well, the name that, according to Helen, is what I have, was Adajamo, which the sign is gone. My granddaughter took it, but so I'm not sure how to spell it. But it was. She always told us that it was an Indian word for chipmunks. So ADI.
Is it
J
Ajidamo?
So the AJ is it AJ
J-I.
before not a
That
D?
is Ajidamo.
Okay, so.
Bonnie took the sign, so.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd have to go look at the sign every time. Yeah. So the sign, but that was Ajidamo or camp was what they called it, and apparently everybody named their cabins. Did they? That was just a kind of a thing that people did.
Well, the one next door was Green Shadows,
Right?
Which was a duplicate of this cottage, basically.
Yes, and I did know that they called it twin cabins. That's what somebody told me, and I don't know who. And they were exactly alike, but never in my memory. They had put some indoor wall covering and so forth, and built out for the a little bathroom area, I think. And I was in there, but I don't remember much about it, but. Now, I believe it was about 1940 when Helen she married Mr. Vance Bronson, and they came up here, and so this cabin, as I understand it, was just an open cabin. And they did the loft, and the stairs, and put in a bathroom, and then put these windows in. So it must have been really dark and just
Well, the windows might have been here, but they were usually small panes. That's the way they were in our cottage. They were like 9 panes or something like that.
Helen told me once, she said, when we put in these big windows, I just felt like the world was opened up to me or something like that, and that's and my understanding was that it was Mr. Vance Bronson that did that remodeling work.
And put the knotty pine in the walls here?
I think so.
And put in indoor plumbing?
Yes. Yes. And then, of course, it was a big disagreement between the two of them, Helen and Lemoyne, whether to have gone to the sewer or the water line, which she was thought, well, we've gotten along this long, and he's like, we've got to do that. Of course, you did have to do it because, because the sewage was run into the lake, and I'm not sure what time that happened because it was recent enough that I heard about it. That's all I know. I just knew that the controversy was going on, but 70s sometime, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I was in the Air Force. I didn't come up as frequently,
Yes.
and it was done when I came up one time.
Well, it was a terrible thing to be running it in the lake, but that's what they did. And some people had wells, but there was never a well here, to my knowledge.
Where did you get your water?
But I don't know
Sure
where.
there wasn't a well. What was
Well,
in that corner?
I just don't know,
Yeah,
because there's a trapdoor looking thing there, and I've never found out.
I don't
should
know
have
what that would have
asked.
been, except maybe-
Well, and it might have been because I think what it is just dig down to it's just the lake water seeping back, right? Do you have a well?
No, we take our water from the lake.
Okay.
You don't
maybe
have.
they did then. Yeah. I was just one.
Well, that didn't happen till the late 50s.
The wells.
and we
Now,
had-
the next door neighbors had a well.
The Bells.
A well.
They drilled a well.
Well, I don't know. Do
they
you
did.
remember there was a kind of little square thing right out by the kitchen door that was kind of their well?
They drilled that so that they could have winter. You
Yeah.
can't winterize without having a well.
Yeah, I think the Bells did that.
They did.
Do you know who owned the house next door before the Bells?
Well, their name was
Eastland.
Eastland, I believe is the correct. It was
I thought it was
Eastland, I believe.
Eastland or something like
Eastland,
that.
and his first name was Orville.
I can probably look that up.
Orville East. It was land, not man or anything, wasn't it? I think it was Eastland. Yeah, and I can't remember her first name, but he was a retired fireman, I believe. That's what my understanding was, and they came up a lot. But she developed MS, and they came. I know about the last time I saw them, they had got stopped in construction on top of the pass and had to sit there for a long time, and her breathing was, the altitude, she was fine when she got here, but the high altitude, they decided that was, she couldn't take it, so that was...
Now, did you have, I know you used to have a rowboat. It was similar to the one we had when I was a young boy. Is that what you primarily had here, was a rowboat too?
Well, we had a canoe, but there was a rowboat, and actually, my husband's cousin's son has it now, and he's having it restored. Well, actually, it had a motor too. The one Lemoyne went across the lake in, it had a motor.
We had one that they put a motor on also.
Yeah.
But
and it was a rowboat.
mostly it started out as a rowboat. Then we had a little Johnson.
Yes.
Yes, that's
engine.
why this was a little Johnson motor, and it was, I can't remember the brand, it was like Penn, started with Penn,
I don't
Might have been
know.
J.C. Penney's
no.
brand. No?
But
Mm-mm.
anyway,
It was a nice boat.
it had beautiful wood on the inside,
Oh.
and some kind of fabric type
Fiberglass.
on the outside to seal it. But what Ron told me, I did get a call from him. Did I tell you that? He has it down in Denver, and somebody's restoring it. And the guy said there were at least 100 pinhole leaks in it. It wasn't too.
I can remember being in a kid and
Oh,
going to the
yes.
point, and you just, we had a little can, you just keep the water out.
bailing water.
Why
yeah.
don't you come over here and sit?
Yes,
and
please
chat?
do, Carmen.
Yeah.
So pull that chair over here by pads, and he was so funny. It was like anything he was like humph. This has been fine for all, for all my life, and so they'd each get assigned one of those seat cushions
And a can.
and a can to bail with, but. And he'd go over and get a newspaper every morning at that time, but.
So we never knew there was a town because we drove over here to the cabin and then we'd take the boat over and we'd go to Humphreys with the Boyd, but we didn't know there were.
Well, you knew there was a town, but you just didn't know
we
about
didn't
the
know
miniature golf.
We didn't know there was miniature golf and stores.
We didn't do stuff like that.
Now, are you mother and daughter?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Carmen. I'm Carmen's oldest daughter.
Mm-hmm. So
Oh.
that was.
So what did you do when you came up?
We went fishing. We fed the chipmunks. Went hiking. We used to go up the east and north inlet a lot with Dad. Hiking.
Go up and catch brookies. Then we'd eat the brookies.
Yeah, get fish.
So how long would you come up when you came up? A week or
gosh.
so?
We could
Yeah.
never spend that much time.
A couple nights would be a long
Oh.
vacation for us. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're on a farm, you can't be away from home that long. We had a pickup and a camper, and we would park it out here on the road and sleep out there too.
For a few years.
Sometimes. And we would. Helen had this half of the house, and Lemoyne had this half upstairs, and we would get to go sleep out on the porch up there on bed springs. She had bed springs out there, and we'd sleep and get rained on. So we didn't, and you guys would sleep in the room down here.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, Bonnie, what year were you born, may I ask?
Pardon me?
What year were you born?
Born
Mhm.
1940.
Oh,
I know. That's,
you're young.
That's. I know. I wasn't born in the 30s, so I'm not really a legitimate person. That's why. Oh, we just used to. My husband used to say that was the difference between the two of us. He was born in the 30s and I was born in the 40s. But, you know, I barely was born in the 40s, but still I was. 40s were times that, well, you know, you lived in rural America. Things started to change. People began to, you know, raise some crops, and then the REA came through, and all sorts of things happened, you know.
Did you grow up on a farm also?
I did.
In that area, I'm assuming?
25 miles about from there. I grew up from where we live.
Cope.
Yeah, Cope was
Cope.
my address.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Another town that's disappearing.
Well,
There's not even a restaurant anymore.
No, or nothing is hardly left out there anymore. It's sad and kind of lonely anymore. There's just not. No coffee shops, no gas stations, nothing. And that, a lot of that's just happened in the last, well, 10 years. But it was kind of slowly and gradually. But we still had a couple restaurants, one in Last Chance and one in Linden and one in Anton. And then they seemed like they all kind of disappeared at the same time. And then the gas stations, and, well, a lot of people would blame the rules, the health department or whatever, but the fact is that those underground gas tanks were leaking into the water table, and a lot of people closed rather than do the work, but I'm not sure. A lot of it had to do with demographics, just like everything else. There's less people, then there's less need to be there. So.
When I would drive my father out, we'd always stop in Cope, and he'd get a cup of coffee and one of those cinnamon rolls.
At the Triple L Cafe?
That's well, it was the last one open, I think.
Oh, the last one open. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was after the Triple L.
And then it closed. There was no reason to stop.
No.
He
No.
tried to get them to put currants in there. Even gave them a currants. That was my father. I just had a memorial service
Yeah.
for him yesterday.
Really?
Yes, you said that in that message. Yeah. So
Did you hear the guns go off, or were you here?
I wasn't
Oh.
here, so I didn't.
That was about 10:20 or something like that. They did the.
That's before we got here.
It was a 21 gun salute. It was the American Legion, and
Oh,
so
wow.
he was in World War II. He was a naval officer. So anyway, I'm putting his ashes up in Grand Lake, the funky little place up there.
Well, people are doing that. I know Ron, our cousin, second cousin, twice removed or whatever he is, has done some ashes out on the lake for people. And so, Ron Richards, I don't know if you know. He doesn't live here. He lives in Tabernash. So, works at the Winter Park ski area.
So what do you? Oh gosh, forgive me. Sorry to hit that thing. I'm squeezed in here. What are you leaving? Are you taking a lot of it with you?
No, nothing. I mean, everything that's in here, we're leaving it. They say she's I believe her. They're going to recycle a lot of
Reuse
things.
it here in their new
Reuse
house.
it,
Yeah.
yes. And she told Carmen they were going to use this old glass in.
They're cabinet fronts. Because this is original glass.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have some too, and it's wavy.
The way this is too, if you look at it, you can
Yeah.
see, you can see
Yeah.
the waves.
And this is very typical where they've had the bark on the inside too.
Yes.
The Masons built a house 2 cottages over back around 1900 or something like that. And he built it himself, Mr. Mason. It's the one that burnt down.
So, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but it was finished inside with the bark on it.
Yeah.
And you could tell everything was made up there. It was
Well, I
amazing.
remember when that burned down.
Were you here that summer?
Well,
Well, we weren't here, but I mean, we were.
they
It
they
was
always
here, and then the next
yes.
time it was.
Yeah.
It was a
burned down.
4th of July, and they always tried to be up here on the 4th of July because they worried about fire and with the fireworks and so forth. And
So Lemoyne and Helen were here.
I
When it
think
happened.
they were, and unless that's maybe that's when they
Well, it was
started believing
after-
that they needed to.
I bet they
be
were
up
up here because it was after we
I
started
think
coming
they
up
probably
here.
were
It's
up
either
here.
late '60s or early '70s.
It was 64 or 65. I don't
Yeah.
remember. But it started at the O'Connor's garage.
Is that right?
Yeah, and then
On
it's
the east,
the vacant lot where
the west.
the Whites park, and then it spread to their guest house, and then it went to the Mason house. But I can't remember the people that owned it at the time. They had gone back to avoid all the stuff going on, because I ran into the daughter up here when she brought her father's ashes to take them up the North Inlet to let them down. That was probably 2005, I'm thinking it was 2004, 2005. So I met her, the daughter, but they never came back. It burned up, so no one ever came back. She was the first one to ever come back.
It's changed so much up here from when we first started coming up. You know, there were still cabins, and there were still people who'd been here for a long time, and they were very friendly and yeah.
Well, people used to walk the lake a lot. you
Oh,
know,
we
and-
did that too. Helen would. I always said we were like a bunch of little ducks lined up behind her, me and my girls, and and we'd walk through the resort. What was the name of there were these people out on this beach, kind of
Oh, David Haven.
Haven. It's like- and I always felt like I was trespassing, but that was another one of those. We've been
That's
doing
what we've
this
always
since
done.
what we've
Yeah, we
always
just
done.
walked right along the lake, right?
Yep.
We didn't walk on the road. We walked right along the
Right in front of the
property.
sunbathers.
Yeah, people out there in their lawn chairs.
Oh God.
Well, that's the way it was done from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
That's what she said. And then we would get an ice cream cone over there on the the little place on the beach or marina area. Yeah, a lot of the time, and then we walked back.
What was your special memory about Humphreys? Anything?
Oh, it was. You kids, maybe you can remember.
It was a long time ago. Wasn't it a grocery store? Was it like a real mercantile? That's what I thought.
No, the
but I can't
grocery
remember.
store that was still when we
Yeah, I
started coming
remember.
up was the store across the street that had an angling
Zix.
Oh,
Zix. Yeah, that was the grocery store, and then Humphreys was more of a dry goods store, as I remember, and not a gift store, I guess.
She had some gifts, I know, but it was the local dry goods store for coveralls and things. But they had a fountain in there. Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
Oh, a soda fountain. You know, I really don't. I don't.
That kind of fountain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't remember anything about that. I don't know when was it taken out, do you know?
Well, the soda fountain is still there. They just sell lots of stuff. So it was when it was sold to the present
Oh,
owners.
it's back there where they have those dishes and display. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can barely see it. Well, I just know we got our ice cream cone over there at the marina because Helen, we were following Helen.
Did she keep her married name, or did she return
She
back?
kept it, yes.
What was the last name then?
Vance Bronson.
Vance Bronson. Okay. Because if I go back to Holdridge, I'll probably go see if I can't learn something about her.
His name,
Charles.
no,
Not Charles.
Lenny Vance Bronson, I believe. Yeah, and we went to visit him one time. We were back in Alma, and he was.
Oh, they were
Casey
both from
Marina.
Alma.
Yes. Oh, he was. Yeah. He was a very nice elderly gentleman, but he'd lost his sight by the time we went to see him. But it was interesting to me to go see him. Of course, my husband had met him when he was a child, but then and hadn't seen him for years and years.
Carmen, what are your memories?
Of the cabin?
Yeah, Kevin, the things you did up here.
That's
Yeah, so
that was mainly it. Was fishing and hiking.
How did you fish? Did you use spinning rod, a fly rod, worms?
We always used fly rods when we went up hiking. We learned with fly rods, and that's the way you wouldn't do anything different up there. But we were allowed to use spin rods out from the dock.
So do you still fish?
So, well, when we're up here, we don't fish a lot. We used to, when Dad was alive, we'd do more fly fishing. We'd go up with Dad fly fishing.
Did you ever know your grandfather?
No, he was gone.
they never.
Or is everybody-
I never knew
Yeah,
them.
Mom didn't.
They were. My husband was quite young when both his parents passed away.
Carmen,
But LeBoyne taught my husband how to fly fish, and he used to come up here by just my husband, and then he'd meet up with LeMoyne, and they would sometimes they'd pack
Even
back.
go backpacking and kayaking. Remember the time they went
Oh,
kayaking?
jeez, yeah.
I remember that because they went up. Where did they kayak? Sometimes
I
that's
think they
where-
went up to Kremling, but I'm not sure, and came down the river. But
I got in the Blue River.
Yeah, my dad wasn't used to water sports, but he went along. And anyway, he got dumped, and he came back soaking wet. And he only had one pair of pants because I remember it was the '60s, so he wore my mother's bell-bottom pinstripe pants. He had to put those on.
kids probably remember that till the day they die. It was not.
Until yeah, because my dad was a cowboy and wore nothing but Wranglers, but he had to wear bell-bottom ladies' pants that day. But now ladies' pants are really in style for young men. But
That was back when I could wear it. He and I wore the same size.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
So he was a cowboy. Had he rodeoed and all that kind of stuff?
He did, yes. And he was he truly was a cowboy. I mean, there's a lot of people who raise cattle, but I would say that he was part of the last of the breed. That's what I would say. He truly was a cowboy. A man of few words. Worked hard. Never said anything unless it was important. Never spoke a word that wasn't true. Loved his horses, loved his dogs, and loved his cattle. Of course, he loved his family, but
The girls,
he loved
yeah.
all those things.
Did you have all girls?
Yes, but we did have a son that we adopted, but he passed away at a very young age, and so now we're back to all girls again in this family.
What are the names of the girls?
Carmen, Janine, Pamela, and Bernice.
Denise. Which one is the one that works for the Postal Service?
That's Janine.
Janine. Okay, I've met her before.
Yeah.
She lived up here for quite a few years.
Mhm.
Yes, she came over here and worked Yes, and she's in Denver now.
Carmen, where are you from?
I live in Boulder now.
Oh.
Unincorporated Boulder.
So, and Pamela, she was back east for, well, I say 30 years.
30
I
years.
guess, and just moved back to Colorado a couple years ago, and that's been really great. We're all happy about
Sure.
that. And she lives in Denver now. And our youngest, Bernice, lives in Colorado Springs. So they're all in Colorado right now, which is good,
Mhm.
I think. Yeah.
You know, Dad used to always hike in his cowboy boots too. You
But he did.
And he'd go. Uncle Moy would take him on all those really long hikes, and but he
finally
probably
got
the
some-
80s, maybe somewhere along the line. He finally tried hiking boots.
Started getting some good.
had himself some real hiking boots.
Yeah.
He figured out that it was good to have traction when you're hiking up steep
Oh,
trails.
I don't know how people, but
He did
cowboys
it. I
learn to
forgot
live with
about
those
that.
things.
Well, when he first started bike
Gosh.
riding, he rode bikes. He rode his bike with him too.
When he started running, he ran in his cowboy boots. And he didn't say, this is typical of him, he didn't say, well, I think I'll start training and then do some races. I just noticed he was out running in the cow trails. and he did it in his cowboy boots for a long time, but then he did.
This was probably about his mid-50s, right? When he started
Yeah, he
running.
started running.
But he was always fit. He always exercised. He
Yes,
would
he-
work all day, and then he'd come home and he did sit-ups and he had weightlifts. And
Wow.
then in his mid-50s, he decided he'd start running and do some races.
5Ks and
So he
10Ks.
did. He started running
And one marathon.
in his cowboy boots.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So did you talk him into
Well,
tennis shoes or?
I do remember talking him into getting some lightweight shorts because I said, look at those guys, they barely have anything on. It's so much better when they're running. But, yeah. And we went every Sunday for years. We went to, almost every Sunday, weekend anyhow, mostly Saturdays and Sundays. We went to a race. But anyway, he was.
How long did he farm? Did he ever retire or just
No. He never retired. He just got, his health just got bad, and no, the day before the last trip to the emergency room, he was out there working,
How old was he when
riding
he
his
passed?
horse, 71, very young.
Carmen, did you come back up in the summers since you live in Boulder?
Well, we tried. We did. We always. That was one of the things that was kind of sad about the cabin is it was kind of underused. So, when you're working during the week, then. So we did, and then we tried to take a week off and come, too, with the kids. So. But a whole summer long, we'd make it up 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I know
It's
when
kinda
I was
sad.
a child, we came up for 2 weeks, and that was it. My father wouldn't take any more time off. So,
Well, it was one of those things, that was kind of in the back of our mind. I know, because my husband would say he didn't understand people who go to Arizona for the winter because and come back to Colorado. You know, and his thing would be to, because he didn't think Colorado winters were that bad.
Mhm.
If he was going to do something, we'd come up here to the cabin in the summer and back out there in the winter. But of course, we never got to do that. But and that to me probably would be more idyllic too. Yeah.
What did you raise on the farm? Was it cattle or?
Cattle, wheat, feed for the cattle. That was it. I mean, it's all dry land.
No.
Dryland wheat and you had Hereford cattle.
Yeah, because you do actually get some rain in the spring, but boy,
Well,
be tough on corn.
there are people out there that do raise corn, and this year, for instance, they've got some really good looking corn around. But last year, for instance, the corn was terrible. I mean, it's a toss-up, and I don't understand corn farming at all. The one year we tried it, it was a big flop, you know. It was
But
terrible.
you planted it after rye, right?
What?
Didn't you plant it in a rye crop?
No,
We had rye in
no. I
there,
think
didn't we?
he summer followed it, but it was we got a huge 2 or 3 inch rain right after it was drilled, and then it didn't rain again, and it was just a big mess, and it didn't really even make ears enough to try to make the cattle go eat it, but they weren't even interested. So yeah.
How many head of cattle would you run?
Well, we would run probably 250 cows and pairs. I told somebody that they would have that many pairs, and he said, "What's a pair? 2 cows?" And I was like, "No, it's a cow and a calf." So then we'd keep the heifers, sell the steers in the fall, and keep the heifers over. So at that point, we'd have, a lot of the time we had about 300 head around it.
You must have had quite a bit of property, though, to...
Well, and we had some rented ground too that I, I've had to give that up. But yeah, it's a really nice place.
Did you raise chickens and?
No.
You
Yes.
weren't the local egg
We
lady
did.
or anything?
We went through this stage of life where of course, there we were. We could do whatever we wanted to do. That was the nice thing about being her. And we kind of did this live off the land thing. It lasted quite a while, too. He milked a cow. We had chickens. We butchered chickens. Had a huge garden. And I baked bread. And it was great. But none of that happens now.
No.
I don't even have a vegetable garden anymore. But yeah, it was... We just did things because we could.
Mm-hmm.
And especially my husband, he liked to do things just because he could. Like they built a sod house one summer, he and the girls did, and that was great.
Just for the fun of it, yeah.
Just for the fun of it. Yeah.
I imagine it was tough cutting that sod out of there.
Well, we had a sod cutter. It was my father's, and I still have it.
We pulled it with a tractor, but we cut the sod.
Yeah. And my father's sod cutter was all metal. Tom's father's sod cutter had it built with wood, and it had, been left outside, and so it pretty much rotted away and doesn't even exist anymore, I guess. But yes, that's a yard ornament. That's what I call a yard ornament.
Carmen, did you get into 4-H and things like that?
Oh yes, we did 4-H from the whole 10 years, from the time I was 8 till 18. That's how I learned to sew and knit and cook. I only had a steer one year, my first year, but I'm still involved in 4-H. I'm a 4-H leader now.
Oh, so you have some children in it?
Yeah, my youngest daughter's in it. So I'm an organizational leader
And this is in Boulder.
in Boulder County. Yeah.
Oh, 4-H is big in Boulder County.
Really?
Oh my, their fair is huge. A lot of horses.
Still doing 4-H.
Yeah, a lot of horses. But I'm not sure.
So my daughter has chickens. She
Yeah.
has chickens.
Right. Does
So
she
you live
still-
in the country then?
Well, I live in unincorporated Boulder, and we'd have more like a.
They're
hog
loud.
farm. You're allowed to have. We're allowed to have 2 animal units, which means 2 horses, and you're not supposed to have chickens too. It'd be 2 horses or 100 chickens. That we have. So
Oh,
we're
is
over.
it?
We're over the limit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably nobody really counting until.
Well, do you still have rabbits? I didn't know.
She still has rabbits.
Yeah.
She,
I
she didn't do rabbits in 4-H this year. So she has rabbits and ducks.
rabbits are, some of the rabbits they have now are, they're just sweet little cuddly things. They're not those scratchy things like.
And, yeah, and I still do have the last horse my dad ever broke. I got him.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His registered name is Mr. Peppermint Bars. He's a registered court horse, but we call him Pepper.
So you
He-
still ride? In that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my husband had 2 horses when he passed away, and Carmen took them. Didn't take them. I that was a good thing to do with him. But Pepper, yeah. I mean, nobody had ever ridden him but Tom, and he had some bad habits.
He did.
Because for Tom, if you get one foot in the stirrup, if the horse wants to go, why, it's okay. You just continue, and things like that. Because it didn't bother him. He really liked that horse because he had a nice smooth gait and everything. And I didn't even realize he had bad habits until somebody else had him besides Tom, and apparently he did have some bad habits to be cured of. Well, he wouldn't load. He got, and that happened. I was there. He slipped and fell, and then he wouldn't load after that. And Carmen had to.
What is
Where-
load?
Oh,
Just get on the trailer.
get in the
Oh.
trailer.
Yeah.
Pretty important, especially where she lives, because every time she goes to ride him, she has to load him and go to a trail. But I guess he's,
Took me a while, but because he was scared to death of trailers.
and it just took one time to have, for that to.
Well, yeah, I need to have Mom get behind him and go, yeah.
I was
And then he
supposed to just make that horse go in the trailer. Yeah,
I had to learn how to do it without having my mother back.
you didn't do it the cowboy way.
Well, I needed to learn. It took me a long
Yeah.
time. I mean, I'd get him in there, and when I'd get him there, he'd be just covered with
Yeah.
sweat. But now he gets on every time. He's quite happy to go with me.
But we always had, there was a horse for each kid. And I always laugh, and I think Tom, we had a great picture of all of them on their horse, but they say, they were helping, move cattle. And then I'd look at that picture and I think, so he saddles 5 horses.
All his little kids
and
out
gets everybody on top and away they go. I know, it was a lot of help. Oh, gosh.
Oh, where do you get your water now?
Well, at home at the farm.
No, here.
Here we get
Yeah.
city water out of
Okay.
that plastic pipeline.
Pipe? Oh, okay.
And of course, we have to make sure that we get it turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons this isn't a winter cabin. Besides the fact it's not insulated.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They last year. Well, was it last year? I was up here turning it off, and the city was also turning it off, so I got right there at that one. It sort of depends on the frost line and stuff, I guess.
They usually try to do it the 1st of October, I think.
Yeah.
It stops at Newbies. It doesn't go to our place.
Really?
Oh,
used to.
really?
Well, where do you get your water? Do you have
Out of the lake.
You pump it out of the lake?
Yeah. Don't drink much of it, but most of that
Oh.
drinking water we carry in. But you used to be able to drink it until just the last few years.
Yes, I've been getting that letter in the mail every year talking about the whatever stuff
Yeah,
in
it's
the
the-
water. Don't drink the water.
The algae in there, yes.
It has been worse.
But they haven't been pumping lately. They're going to start, Wednesday or something like that, I think. They're going to start pumping again. August is the worst month for it because that's when the algae blooms
Blooms.
in Shadow Mountain, and of course it comes in here. So
Yes, I know it's. They talked about pumping it. I don't know, pumping it dry or something, and trying to, or that.
they lowered Shadow Mountain down. They blocked up this, so there wasn't any water going through a couple years ago, and then they drained Shadow Mountain, but it was only to kill the lakeweed. Well, they had big snow, it insulated it, and it didn't kill the weed.
Oh.
So, but that was just the lakeweed.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
remember what the outcome was, but.
yeah, they wasted their money.
Hmm.
So, could we take a little walk around and you talk about the rooms?
About the one?
The rooms and
Oh,
like that, and we just
sure. It's not. Have they gone home, Carmen? I haven't. I didn't know. I thought I might see her
She wanted
this
to
week.
see you. She's,
Yeah.
she said she wanted to be up and see you.
yeah. That fireplace is a lot nicer than ours. Ours is just out of rock they found on the mountains.
But Mom and Dad put this insert in.
Oh, it has an insert.
The
okay.
insert, yeah, that.
It was just an open. It did not put out a heat. That's another reason it wasn't warm. That,
Right,
that
that
didn't put
insert
out any
made a lot
heat.
of difference. Yeah.
And
Now-
we did have a lot of rot above the fireplace.
Carpenter
Yeah.
ants.
Because carpenter rats.
Yes.
What about the old furniture here?
Oh,
There's none of this furniture was here because Helen had everything taken out before she
had
died.
somebody clean it out.
Oh.
It was,
That's the sad thing. There would have been a lot of family stuff, but
yeah. we
after
didn't
Lemoyne
really-
died, she had everything taken out except the boat.
And just
Never
thrown
did.
away, or did she
No.
take it?
Oh, we'd see some of it in the secondhand stores in Grand Lake.
Well, this lady, she had some lady from here go and take everything out, and I guess, and she was upset about some dispute she'd had with Lemoyne about one of the farms, that the person that rented one of the farms. That's what the farm that Buddy farmed, that your kids farm. And it was nothing, we weren't involved in it, but that's what happened, was that
Okay.
there were two couches, sort of like, there was a chair, turning towards, if everything
that
was
chair
here.
that Lemoyne would sit in and read
Yeah.
at night was like a.
And there was a rug in the middle, but
You said there were Navajo rugs?
yes.
And hanging on the wall too, right? Now we're doing that.
I don't remember what was on the wall, Carmen, but I do know, I just remember they're like on the couches and stuff. She had it was very, it was old. Everything in here was old. And then they had a table their table was right in front of the window, and it had this fold out. It was kind of a drop leaf table, I guess. And they had a bookcase, was in that corner. Always a bookcase full of books, of course. That's hoarder trait. If you sit and there has to be a lamp and a book.
Oh.
That's very, or a newspaper, which newspapers are starting to be. So and there were rugs on the floor. There was a rug over here too, because she would bring up rugs and things that she found, I think. I mean, not found, but she did like to bring things up. And
It was darker too.
It was very
because
dark.
They
and I
had a
don't know.
topo map over this. The dad
Well-
moved down, and then these curtains were long.
Yeah,
These are actually the same curtains, and my mom
Yeah.
shortened it and made it a header, but they're totally covered.
that's right.
So this was a lot. When they were here, it was darker inside.
There was a small little china cabinet thing, and but what was here? It was full. It was absolutely a full room of stuff, but can't remember much more about it. But it was absolutely empty when we first came up here. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back
It's
to
a
the
little-
kitchen.
Little. Of course, there was a
wood stove.
yeah, there was a kitchen range here in the corner where that is. Scared us. We just couldn't stand it. You know, my husband worried about fire a lot. And I know we came up here his sister's and her family were up here. Came up here and she was so proud because she'd fried a bunch of chicken and oh gosh, she had this. The stove was like had it blazing hot and it sat right next to the wall. So that stove disappeared soon after that. And then there was a hot plate, and Carmen and her husband
We put the 220 in.
put a 220 in so we could have a little stove and miniature little stove, but it makes it. There was any room for anything else.
All the
But
time
this was in here. This was put in at the same time the wall, the knotty pine walls were put in. But there was kind of a little kitchen cupboard in here that like reached clear up, but you couldn't reach it, even to use it. And Carmen had brought these up from a renovation she did in her home and put them on here. So we're flying with the geese. We had a stove, cabinets to put our dishes in. Oh gosh, that was. And about that's about it. What was she had? She did have a little cupboard here that had a little glass door, and that's where she kept some of the dishes. But I don't remember what was. There was some kind of a cabinet, and that's where the hot plate sat. But I can't remember what. And there was one line of wire for this whole house, and you're constantly. We came up here, we were constantly blowing fuses, constantly. And we did have somebody come and didn't do too lovely a job, but ran another line around so we could quit blowing a fuse every time we plugged two things in. But because you'd be trying to cook with an electric skillet and a hot plate, somebody would have the nerve to turn on a light or something, then you'd be in trouble. So that was kind of a and there was a bookshelf thing that was here, but with our large group, it was just so crowded. So we took it out. It was just made out of this, this, what do you want to call it? These uncured planks or whatever they
rough cut
native deal.
There's a lot of rough cut in here.
Yeah. So I don't know. So this was our answer to making a shower right here. Carmen and I did that.
So what was here before it was a bathroom?
I think I think this place was all one big room. I do. I don't think there was a bedroom partitioned off. Or any of this. My understanding is it was a large room, not too many windows, and this was so this just little bedroom that we. Of course, the floor was like falling down, and one of my daughters, my second daughter, the one that was the postmistress, they came and put some plywood flooring and made a floor so you didn't fall when you got out of bed.
It was totally
It was
down.
like it was just like you were going to fall out. But it's amazing. You do something like that you just don't think you think it's just going to fall apart. But it seems like up here stuff. Of course, we're not up here often enough, I suppose, to things to get ruined or whatever, but are worn out. But they seem to last. So that.
Yeah.
Well, this looks like it's been around a few years.
I bought that at an auction.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a favorite thing.
Because it looks like it has birch on it,
Yeah.
which you don't find much
Yeah.
birch up here. It's aspen.
This lady was selling a bunch of stuff. I don't think it's old, but it seemed like it fit the cabin. So.
So you think this partition was in the 40s?
Well, I
That
think
rough cut?
so, but
I would guess this was original.
I wonder if it wasn't.
maybe so.
They didn't have. I put this on there. There was just this old lodgepole rail across the top and down, and the kids would and
Well,
did fall
Yeah,
through here.
somebody fell out and, yeah.
Sydney.
Okay.
Right away we did put this railing up because, yeah, it was just kind of, so it narrowed it up kind of, but
It's still narrow and steep, but at least you can't.
Yeah.
Kids can't fall
Kids fall
through.
through.
It didn't
Yeah.
bother us because we could,
Yeah.
none of us were, really very big people, but some people have a little trouble getting, anyway. And that, yeah, also, this was like one fall project that was, Carmen and I did probably, oh my gosh, when did we do it? 15, 20 years ago? It's been quite a while ago, maybe 15. Anyway, and we put a railing up there too because it was dangerous for little kids. It was when we still had a lot of small children in the family anyhow.
Yeah.
Boards better, so we just, oh, and Bonnie took home those rugs I had made that were around. I don't know what she's going to do with them, but
Yeah, so you see there's the ceiling and there's the tar paper.
Yeah, this was the same thing we had,
Yeah.
but we just had shingles on top. Because you could occasionally, when it was dry, you could see a little light come through.
Well, and
You didn't have any tar
yeah.
paper.
Right after,
No.
like in 82 or 3, whenever it was, when we came up here, we put these.
That's right.
Braces.
Mom and Dad put the 2x6s because it was sagging.
Yeah.
It was starting to sag, so they did this. But it was also all curtained off. Like there was a
Yes,
big
they made it.
curtain here, so this was all dark, and Lemoyne slept on this side.
Lemoyne was on the left side over
This
here.
side, this was his, but there
Oh.
was a curtain hanging across
They
here.
made rooms with
Oh.
curtains.
So it was all dark. So you'd come up the stairs, and we were never allowed in there. And Helen slept in here. And we'd sleep out here, which is awesome, out here on the porch.
Sure.
But yeah,
But this came from Alma, supposedly. I think that's what
yeah.
they put that in, added that in there.
Yeah, Helen had that added in, and I remember when I came up here, and she was really proud of that. She had somebody let so much more light in here. But this is that wavy glass.
Yeah, that's
too.
original glass.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
So the
This
new
was
house
really
is
low,
they're saving
and was
that.
scary
That's going to be on the
when we had
front door.
kids. So I had somebody. What was that guy's name? George.
Eslick? George.
A handyman around. And he had him, and he put these braces and everything. So
George Nair.
Okay.
Yeah, we use the same ones. Let me go out on the porch.
Yeah, and the porch is pretty awesome.
What a view.
It's the best place in the whole cabin, right here. She had beds. There was a set of bed springs here and a set of bed springs there.
Couldn't have been too comfortable. I didn't ever. And then you put sleeping bags
And then
on
put
top.
sleeping
right?
bags on them. Yeah,
Did they have a mattress on them or just springs?
the springs.
They did. It was. I don't know. It was just whatever. She was taking care of them and doing things for them, and they were happy, and it was fun for them. They never even thought anything about it.
Now this was a 50-foot lot.
Yeah.
Oops, yeah, you gotta be careful there. Yeah.
I'm
And
okay.
there's nails. There's